And one last little rendering element that Unity has is a texture projector, and that works similar to a video projector. It just projects a texture onto materials around it. So to make one, you go to Game Object, Create Empty. I will rename it Blob Projector. A blob projector, well, a blob shadow is a shadow underneath like a third-person player character that exists under them that lets you know where they are at all times. So, like right now, I'm going to click on one of these lerps guys, zoom in, move him over. Right now, if this is a player and he was jumping up and down and also moving, if he went off screen or if he was just really high in the air and it was really hard for a player to have a reference point, it just could get kind of confusing as to where this character exists in the 3D space. But one way to resolve that issue is to project a shadow underneath him, so you know even when he's in the air, like where he is at all times. And you can do that real time by having a light above him just shining down, and then he has like a shadow below him. But that would get expensive for your computer processor, meaning it would just take a lot of computer power to do all the time. So a way to get around this is to use a blob shadow, which is a fake shadow. It's just going to be one fuzzy texture that's projected underneath the character at all times, no matter what light sources are around it. So this blob projector here will be a projector for that shadow. So we have the empty game object right now. We renamed it blob projector. Now go to Component, Rendering, Projector. You see there's a projector component here. And if you look in your scene view, you can see where the projector is projecting. It has similar settings as the camera, a near and far clip plane where it starts and stops rendering the texture, a field of view, so the angle, an aspect ratio, if it's orthographic or not, and which layers it's going to ignore and cast on, and then what the material is that it's going to project. So there's actually a material in standard assets called where is it? Shadow material. So go ahead and find shadow material by going to that tiny little triangle in the material property, and there's your shadow material. If you move the blob projector now above this lerps character here, then go back into perspective view, rotate it so it's casting down onto the lerps character. Straight down, please. Here, and one more. You can also use these numbers here. I'm going to change that to 90, 0, 0. Bing. And move this to where it's covering the lerps character. And we'll move it up. There we go. So you see that it's casting this shadow not only below lerps, but actually onto the material too. And we just want the shadow below him. So I'm going to change this culling mask, or what's called ignore layers here, from nothing to custom ignore. So now it ignores lerps, but it still casts the shadow underneath him. I'm also going to make the field of view smaller so it's not a crazy big shadow. And I'm going to parent the blob projector onto lerps. Which one am I dealing with here? This guy. Okay, so a parent there, losing prefab connection. That's okay. Now we have this blob projector that's parented to lerp. So wherever lerp moves, if you look in the game view here, that shadow will follow. And it actually gets bigger as lerp gets farther from the ground, smaller as it gets closer to the ground. Now if you want this for all your lerp characters, all you got to do is drag this new one onto the lerp prefab. Oh, actually, we haven't created a custom lerp prefab. So if you want both of them to have a blob projector, you can go to Create, Prefab in your project window. Name it lerps prefab. And then drag your new lerps with the blob projector onto lerps prefab. And you can just make a bunch of lerps dudes with shadows just by dragging them onto your scene. Okay, in this section you learned how to use different types of lights, spot, directional, and point, the different types of light rendering, which is vertex and pixel, also how to selectively cast light onto different objects using layers, and then we learned a little bit about blob projectors and how to project textures onto other objects.